In the United States, over the last decade, 60,000 pedestrians died under the wheels of an automobile. 1 million pedestrians were injured. Join us for the next half hour as we take a look at perils for pedestrians.
We're on Western Avenue, which forms the boundary between the District of Columbia and Maryland. I have with me Jordan O'Neill. What's the situation like here for pedestrians?
Well, there is a pedestrian peril here, John, and the pedestrian peril is this dirt pathway where a sidewalk would be. The peril is mainly the rocks and roots which stick up and are dangerous for the elderly specifically and children as well as people in general.
And where are these people be heading, all these pedestrians along here?
Well, it's a well-traveled area. As you can see, the dirt is pretty well worn, and that's because there's a market right up the block here, Western Market, at the corner of Earlston and Western, where people buy their groceries. And there's also the mailbox. The U.S. mail is picked up right down the block at Leroy and Western, as well as the bus stop. So it's pretty well traveled.
And why would people be traveling on this side of the street and not over on the other side?
Well, that's a good question. The subway is 6 blocks down that way. That's the Friendship Heights subway station on the Red Line. As people travel this way towards the eastern side of the city, 6 blocks further, they must cross the street because there's no sidewalk on the DC side. The embankment comes right up to Western Avenue, a quarter mile from the subway, so people cross over Western Avenue. And when they get to this side, if they don't want to have this peril of the roots and rocks on this well-worn path, they have to cross back over Western, which is dangerous because there's no crosswalk.
And we're on a boundary here between two jurisdictions. Has that made life complicated?
Yeah, it complicates things a little bit because DC's on one side and Maryland's on the other. And as it happens, DC owns up to 40 feet on the western side of Western Avenue. So it's the responsibility of DC to put the sidewalks in because it's DC property, not Maryland property. But we've opened the lines of communication and we're confident that we will get sidewalks here soon.
We're on Western Avenue with Stephen Schwartz. What sort of difficulties do you face walking along here?
Well, we face difficulties as we're walking along this section of Western Avenue and all the sections that don't have sidewalks because often the conditions are very muddy or there are a lot of tree roots and other obstacles which are very easy to trip over, and either we have to traverse them or we can cross the street and walk on the sections that do have sidewalks, but that's dangerous in its own right, crossing such a busy street.
Is it just walkers that face problems, or do other people as well?
Actually, I think joggers face even a bigger peril. We have a lot of joggers that come up and down the street, and in many sections of the street, they're jogging right along the curb, and a fall can be fatal because if you fall, you're going to be falling right into oncoming traffic. Cyclists also face a problem because when the traffic's heavy, they have to be cycling basically in a lane of traffic, and I've seen a lot of near misses.
We're on Western Avenue with Lucia Leith. So why do you walk along here?
Because I like to walk and I don't want to be dependent on my car. That's why I like living in the city, is so I can get places walking. I like to walk to Friendship Heights and the metro stop, and it's just very convenient to be that close, and I can't really do it under these circumstances without having a sidewalk on Western Avenue on this side of the street.
We're on Western Avenue with Malcolm Leith. So what's your experience as a pedestrian along here?
Well, it's been quite difficult sometimes when there's snow or when there's rain and it's muddy and so forth to walk down to Lord & Taylor's or to the Friendship Heights metro station, and especially when I'm taking my little nieces down here. I'd like it to be much safer, and I'd like to be able to use the public facilities down there that are available to us. And the way it is now, I'm inhibited from doing it.
We're on Western Avenue with Marisa Peñalosa. So what are your concerns for pedestrians along here?
I think that we need sidewalks on Western Avenue because streets without sidewalks are very dangerous to people. We're just waiting for an accident to happen. I've seen a lot of people tripping when walking on the streets. I'm a runner, and I can't run on the sidewalks or non-existent sidewalks. So, and then with the traffic being so heavy, it makes it really impossible to walk from my house on Western Avenue to the subway in Friendship Heights.
Our intersection of the month this time is the corner of Shady Grove Road and Route 355 in Gaithersburg, Maryland. This is a massive intersection with lots of left turn lanes and right turn lanes. To go all the way around it, we need to cross 34 lanes of traffic. The crosswalks are not marked, and there are no pedestrian signals. It's a bit of a guessing game to figure out when you should go. What makes it particularly tricky is that almost all the phases here have the forward traffic going at the left turn traffic. So the two directions on the street take turns. If you're on the wrong corner, your direction has the red first, same time that you should be crossing. But you can't tell that the oncoming traffic has a green. By the time your direction gets the green, they also have the green arrow. You're in trouble. That's a problem on every corner here, depending upon which direction you're trying to go. We're not that far from the Shady Grove Metro Rail stop, but the ride-on buses also stop along here. If you're going to take the bus home, you have to be able to cross the street to catch it going the other direction. A couple of crosswalk signals do a lot to help out pedestrians here. We're here in Bethesda, Maryland. I have with me Jim Clark with the Sierra Club. And why are we here this afternoon?
We're here to raise awareness that there's an alternative to traffic congestion of the automobile that most people are driving. We're here to say that we have another alternative, a light rail line between the two largest employment centers in Montgomery County, Bethesda and Silver Spring. It's known as the Georgetown branch. What we aim to do is provide a safe, dependable, reliable alternative to the automobile. We have serious air pollution problems in this region. We have serious transportation problems. We're at the point now where we can't expand the road. If you are here on East-West Highway, you know it's a 4-lane highway, and that there's really no way you can expand the road. There's ample bus service on this highway, but the buses are stuck in traffic. What we propose with the Georgetown branch light rail system is a safe, efficient, dependable transportation system that'll do the trip from Bethesda to Silver Spring in about 13 minutes, compared to about the normal half hour that most people spend stuck in traffic now.
And I take it there would be a lot of people who both live or work within walking distance of this light rail line.
That's correct. I don't remember what the exact numbers are, but yes, there are an ample number of people who live within walking distance of this light rail line. And also there'll be an alternative with this light rail line. There'll be a hiker-biker trail, so those people who want to could have a safe way to bicycle between Bethesda and Silver Spring, since the distance is just a little over 4 miles, which is an easy bicycle trip.
We're in Rockville, Maryland with Broderick Kelly, who is
Transit Operations Supervisor with Gaithersburg, Rockville Ride-On, Montgomery County.
Now, what's this strange contraption on the front of your bus here?
These are bicycle racks to help so that bicyclists may transport their bikes and also utilize public transit.
And a lot of people haven't seen one of these before. Are they used elsewhere in the country?
They're used about 3 other cities that I'm aware of is Albuquerque, Duluth, Minnesota, and Seattle, Washington.
So they are making the rounds. Are these on all your buses now?
They're on all of our larger buses. There's the smaller contractor buses don't have them, but all of our large buses will.
Well, let's see how it works.
Okay, all right, here we go. And it's just a little simple operation because these bicyclists would have to do this themselves. It's just depressing this handle, lowering the rack, and then taking the bike, and I got to get my bike now. And loading it into the rear rack, pulling out the hook and over the tire, and the bike's secure.
Then you climb on and pay your fare.
And get off and ride your bike.
We're in Fairfax County, Virginia, along Route 29. right next to some large townhouse developments. We're a 15-minute walk from Vienna Metro Rail and a 5-minute walk from the Pan Am Shopping Center. Could be quite a convenient place for people living here. You can walk home from Metro Rail and pick up a bag of groceries or a videotape on the way. The ability for a young family to save on the expense of a second car is an important incentive for people to use mass transit. You can save $5,000 a year over car payments, depreciation, insurance, gasoline, and the whole host of expenses that go with car ownership. Problem is, there's no sidewalk along here. Just a couple of years ago, the highway department widened out Route 29 to 5 lanes along here, put in new curbs and gutters, new storm drain system, but no sidewalk. You either have to walk in the street or you have to jaywalk across some very busy traffic. Not exactly a safe thing to do. We find it a little odd that they neglect doing something like that on such an important route. There's a lot of concern about not enough parking at Vienna Metro, and yet you don't make it possible for people to walk there. I'd say the highway department needs to add the word pedestrian to its mission statement. We're here along the Cornish Right of Way in Bethesda with Laura Eisen. This path is a little odd. Can you tell us about it?
Well, yes, we've been trying to get a path built here for at least 10 years. Many people use this right-of-way to get through to Bethesda and to the swimming pool and the library. And for some reason, they chose to build the most unusual path, I think, in Montgomery County, with 90-degree turns every, I guess, 80 feet, you say? I never measured. But it's really hazardous for the kids on the bikes, particularly, who come through here and try to make these turns and are frequently falling off their bikes in the effort, and so have given up, basically. And you can see where the bikes go through straight now and avoid the path because it's so impossible to negotiate these turns. In fact, I ride a bike and I cannot make these turns myself on the bike and also go straight through. And it seems counterproductive, and it defeats part of the purpose for which we wanted to have a path here, which would be to make it easy and safe to get through this part of the neighborhood. I don't know if there's anything else I can add. I have never seen a path like this in Montgomery County, and I've seen quite a few others, and they're all straight, and they just take you from one side of the right-of-way to the other side without making a big effort out of it. And it seems as if they went out of their way to make this inconvenient.
We're in the Cornish Right of Way with Marilyn Goldwater. Tell me, what do you think of the design of this path?
Well, I am really astonished at the intricate configuration, which makes it very difficult for bikers as well as pedestrians. But more importantly, it seems to me that cobblestones, particularly these small ones, are really a pedestrian hazard. As you're walking, your ankles can turn, the stones kick up easily. Certainly not good for bikers, and certainly not good for little children like the one we see now coming down on a bicycle with training wheels, or for skaters. And part of the reason for this path was to allow access from this part over to the other part, as all roads do. But it was my impression it was going to be a blacktop that would be easy to maintain, easy on one's walking and riding, etc. So I'm a little bit surprised and somewhat disappointed, I might say, because this community has fought long and hard for a pathway.
We're on the Cornish Right of Way in Bethesda with Greg Whetstone. Tell me, what's the history of this odd path behind us?
Well, the Community Association uses this path and all the residents in this vicinity quite a lot to get to the subway and to the public library and the pool, and it connects our neighborhood here in South Bradley Hills with Edgemore and downtown Bethesda. And we had petitioned for some time the county to put a hardened surface here so that it doesn't become too muddy in the winter for people to get through with baby carriages and bicycles, and for pedestrians on their way to work. What happened was a number of the individuals, mainly in Glenbrook Road, who were opposed to the sidewalk, decided that this was the camel's nose under the tent. And first they charged that this was a wetland and that putting a sidewalk here would actually fill in a wetland. And following that, when that was dismissed, as well it should have been, it was asserted that from the gentleman who lives here, Albert Small, that the problem was that first there would be too many kids here. And then he filed suit claiming that he actually owns this land and that it was not county property. There went into settlement negotiations with the county's lawyer. I was head of the community association at the time, and we met with the lawyers. And in those negotiations, what's Mr. Small's attorney said was the real problem was rollerbladers, and they didn't want rollerbladers coming through here. And our statement to the county attorneys was that if they wanted to do something to make it a rough surface, as this surface is now, that was fine, but it needed to be something that could be negotiated by baby carriages and people on bicycles and kids. And unfortunately, the result, as you can see, is one that is extremely difficult to negotiate on a bicycle. In fact, my wife fell over on this when it was muddy on the side and a bicycle with a small child in the back. It's very hard to make these corners, and the unfortunate reality is that because Mr. Small was willing to spend a lot of money with a good law firm, Linnos and Blocker, he was able to come in and prevent the county from doing with this path what was necessary to serve the purpose of the money that was invested. In other words, to have it make sense for pedestrians and people with strollers and bicycles. Instead, what we see is something that was much more expensive. If you look how much more concrete they had to put down here to make this path, and that really is very ill-suited for its purpose. I would like to see Graham Norton, who was committed to doing this path, but then settled in a way that it really doesn't serve his purpose. I'd love to see Mr. Norton come in here and negotiate this on a bicycle. I feel that the county has invested a lot of money in a way that's really wasted and is ill-suited for its purpose, and it's really a great disappointment. Like others who push for this path, I'm someone that believes that government can do things to help people that make sense, and when you fight for the county and say the county can do this and do a good job, and they come in and really make a mockery of what you're trying to do by something that serves the purpose of one gentleman who is ready to throw a lot of money at the issue and ignores the clear public interest and simply being able to get from one end to the other. That's a big disappointment, and that's really an unfortunate result. But that's the history of this path. It's all designed to stop rollerblading, which to my knowledge is a legal activity in any case. But the result is it's a real hardship for people on bicycles or with baby strollers who are trying to negotiate from one end to the other.
Has rollerblading been a problem on any other sidewalk anywhere in Edgemore?
I'm not aware of any concern ever with rollerblading. There is a trail, the Crescent Trail, a short distance from here. This path is an access to the Crescent Trail. A lot of people bike on it. It's you see rollerbladers up and down the Crescent Trail. They're there with pedestrians and bicyclists. It's no problem. I don't rollerblade myself. I don't see the problem, but most troublesome is that one man's prejudices were allowed to really prevent the county from doing something that made sense. And it's really an unfortunate demonstration of how democracy can go awry, and a big disappointment.
We're on the Cornish Right of Way with Ruben Altizer. You use this path regularly. What do you think of it?
Well, I walk this path back and forth to get downtown twice a day, and I don't understand, first off, why they had to make the zigzag pattern. And second, if they're coming back to replace the asphalt with a non-smooth surface, why they didn't just straighten it out at that point. I don't know whose idea it was to do all these silly things to it.
So you find the zigzag pattern inconvenient? How would you describe it?
Well, it doesn't bother me because I'm able to, I can just walk around it. But as you can see, the wear pattern here, a lot of people come through on their bikes and just come straight through, and they don't bother to follow the zigzag. So it's really defeating the purpose of putting a sidewalk in. I mean, I appreciate the fact that we have a sidewalk and we don't have to walk through the mud as much now. but they didn't have to make it quite so inconvenient.
We're on the Cornish Right of Way with Joe Black. Tell us, what do you think of the design of this path?
Well, the design is not very conducive to running, hardly walking, and certainly riding a bicycle or using rollerblades or anything that requires quick movements. As you can see, the kids take matters into their own hands and sort of straighten out the path, especially when it's dry. There is a straight line running down the path through the dirt and then continuing on. But the path does not make too much sense. It's probably not wide enough, and the square corners just make it very difficult to negotiate. And I'm a runner, and I find that this path, especially when it's wet, when I have to honor the turns, slows me down quite a bit, hurts my knees, and I'm generally dissatisfied with it.
We're still at the Cornish Right of Way with Art Bardos. Tell me, what do you think of this crooked path?
Well, I was part of a major effort to get the county to build it because it was a sea of mud historically, and it's a county right of way, so only the county could do anything about it. But we went at it because there are a great many people who use this path to get to the metro if they walk, or to get to the library, get down to downtown Bethesda. And they all ended up mired in mud if the weather was of that persuasion. There were a number of people who were very worried about it because both neighborhoods on the two ends of it tended to feel that unwanted elements would be encouraged to invade their territory if there were a walkable path. It never seemed quite clear to me why each neighborhood feared the other for unwanted elements. But in any case, this was one of the many arguments that were brought up against it. And people along the path felt that their privacy would be greatly impinged upon if people didn't walk through mud, but on pavement. So the strange shape that the path took is partly a result of some of these discussions, because it had to be a path that would discourage any wheeled vehicle, including blade skates, from using this path, because they were particularly feared, even more than unwanted elements. And so the county went ahead to do the best crooked path that it could, and this is the result. And I think it serves its purpose. I think people are using it. They may have to put in a little more energy than they would if the path were straight. But nobody seems to complain about that.
We're on the Cornish Right of Way with Wendy Guillou. Tell me, what do you think of the design of this path?
Well, the design is a bit bizarre. I like the fact that the path is here because we walk to Metro. My husband has been at the World Bank for 10 years, so he walks every morning and every evening, 4 seasons, and it's been muddy and horrible. But the design of it, as you can see, is difficult because it keeps turning at right angles all the way down. And I think the purpose of it was to stop bicycles from whipping through, or from having rollerbladers come flying through, which would annoy the tennis players who might be playing tennis on the next court. But what's happening is that the bicycles, as you can see, go straight anyway. And for the children who we all tell follow the path, some of them are falling because it's too sharp. And so they cut across. It's hard for us to plant things. You see at the end, the neighborhood association has planted bushes and we put in flowers, but it's hard here because of this, I think, rather stupid design. I am grateful that something's here so we're not walking in the mud, but I think that there's a waste of energy. and that the planning leaves a lot to be desired just to satisfy not having rollerbladers or something come through who come anyway.